Happy Monday, everybody. Andy and Steve from WagerTalk.com. Welcome to the Road to Millions for this Monday, September 25th. We've got a great show. You're going to want to stick around. We're giving out actionable info on Monday Night Football. We have four best bets that we really like. We're going to talk about those. Steve, coming off of a really nice NFL weekend, and man, 3-0 and
Whew.
5%. Based on a couple comments I got on Twitter and a couple text messages I got, wasn't looking great at halftime, but that's why we play the full game. Come on. Let's recap Jalen Warren hitting our third 5% in a row this year.
So we took Jalen Warren over 2.5 receptions at plus 105 odds. I think we got it on. Um, Man, it was sweaty. He didn't have any in the first half. No receptions. Not even a target in the first half.
Targets.
That's that's what was nerve wracking about it. But we were both still optimistic about it. I was a little nervous, but glad it came through. He ended up getting 4 targets in the second half, catching exactly 3 passes, and cashing our third straight 5% play, 3-0 on 5% plays in the NFL this year.
Yeah, it was a really good way to cap off a weekend that had a lot of ups and downs. So here's what we got for today's show. We're going to do 4 Monday Night Football best bets. We got a fade of the day. We got a sleeper of the day. We got a stat of the day. And in case you couldn't figure out when I said the show that it starts its 52nd season, it's The Price is Right. And what I did was I actually was able to get an interview with Justin, who wrote Solving the Price is Right. He breaks down all the games, all the strategies. This is a guy that majors in game theory. And so we just nerded out on The Price is Right. Theories behind different games, how to make it out of Contestants Row. It relates to real life and to gambling. We talk about some sports. We mix in some real life examples of how it works. I mean, if you like The Price is Right, it's like 30 minutes of two guys just geeking out about The Price is Right. So did the interview last week. Wanted to save it for today because The Price is Right, 52nd season. They're in their new studio starts today. So it's fun. It's something I wanted to do. Justin's a great guy, so smart. And for Price is Right fans, this is right up your alley. All right, let's get into Steve Monday Night Football here. So we're doing 4 Monday Night Football best bets. You did 2. I did 2. We'll start with the Rams and the Bengals game because this one's a little bit tough to figure out without Burrow. So obviously we're not really going after Bengals props. Why don't you start? We both like rushing props for the Rams. I think we like them to be up if Burrow is out. I'll let you start with Kyron Williams.
So Kyron Williams has had 14 and 15 rush attempts in his first 2 games, so he just fell just short. Just cleared it, and that's despite the Rams throwing 78% of the time in their last game. Bengals run D has been vulnerable. Gave up 40 carries, 206 to the Ravens last time out. Projected close game. I think the Rams will be leading, and we'll see Williams get plenty of rush attempts and clear this total.
Yeah, I'm going to go to Matthew Stafford. Over 3.5 rushing yards. Matthew Stafford's been running this season. But this is a revelation. I talked about him going under last week. I was sorely mistaken. So against Seattle, he rushed 3 times for 11 yards, and against San Francisco, 4 times for 17 yards. He has a 9-yard rush in Seattle and a 7-yard rush in San Fran. With this low number, he just needs to break off one. And even if they're up and they kneel at the end, I mean, a 9-yard rush and a 7-yard rush, you only need one kind of broken play for him to get over this total. I'm really surprised at this number. 3.5 rushing yards. I don't know. Maybe tonight's the night where he doesn't run, but I love this low number where you only need one rush and he gets over it. So I'll take Matthew Stafford over his rushing yards. Let's move to a game that should feature a lot more gettable props in this one. And I think, Steve, the general consensus is this game is going to feature a lot of passing. We have 2 really good rush defenses, and we have some secondaries that can really be taken apart. So I'll start because Jalen Hurts, if you think there's going to be a lot of passes, you're going to go Jalen Hurts over 30.5 pass attempts. He did not get over this total against Minnesota. It's because they rushed the ball 48 times for 200-plus yards. I mean, they didn't need to throw. But tonight, this is a Tampa Bay team that has allowed the second least amount of rushing yards, barely allowing over 50-plus yards. We don't really know who the running back really is, the starting running back. And Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown kind of had that little spat on the sideline, and this just sets up for a huge Jalen Hurts game. You can throw all over Tampa. So I like his pass attempts. I'm hoping we don't get a huge long play, like a 60-yard pass that kind of ends the drive early. I'm really
Yeah.
hoping to get some dink and to get some dink and dunk here. But I was looking at yards for Hurts, but in the end, I think I'm just going to go pass attempts because I think he can pick his poison with A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and your guy, Dallas Goddard. So I'll let you talk about what you like about Goddard for tonight.
Well, if you're hoping for dink and dunk, it looks like our plays correlate again. Without even talking about it, both plays correlate in both games. Goddard had 6 receptions last week against the Vikings after getting none against the Patriots. It was a tough matchup, though. That defense can they can plan to shut somebody down, and I don't know if they were necessarily planning to shut down Goddard, but they did that day. He's You've looked at it, and the Bucks are vulnerable to the tight end position. Hawkinson had 8 receptions against them. Kmet had 4. So both of the top tight ends that they faced so far have cleared this number. Like you had mentioned, Andy, we're looking at a stingy run defense. The way to get through the Bucks is to the Bucks is through the air. So look for Goddard to be a safety blanket for Hurts in this one. I feel like this number seems a little low. I don't know if they would have set it at 4.5, it would obviously seem a little high at that point. But at 3.5, I love this play. Like I said, we've seen both top tight ends clear this number against the Bucks. So give me Goddard over 3.5 receptions.
Love it. The Stafford rushing yards, Kyron Williams rush attempts, Jalen Hurts pass attempts, and Dallas Goddard over 3.5 receptions. Those are your 4 Monday Night Football best bets. All right, guys, what do we have up for today? Well, we slight change for Wager Talk. Instead of $9 Monday, it's just called Half Price Monday. Full disclosure, it just makes it a hell of a lot easier for us on the back end to do half price instead of $9. This works out great for us because our plays tonight are only $4.50. So you get a Monday Night Football best bet for $4.50, and we have our MLB play of the day for $4.50. There's no reason to not grab that Monday Night Football play. We're up 13.7 units in football. Really bummed because we're like a unit and a half behind the top 3 on the leaderboard on the front of the website. So
Man, falling just short.
I know, we were like just barely there, but we've had a really good season and look to continue that tonight. And we have a promo code for this week. Use the promo code Andy100. It gets you $100 off a football season pass. So the way this works, you can get the NFL rest of the season, or you can do NFL and college football for the rest of the season, which I've seen a few people taking advantage of. And smart, Steve, we only need one play in college football. We've done it low volume, one play a week, so now we're 4-0 in college football. So if you want to take advantage of NFL and college football, that combo for the rest of the season, just use the promo code Andy100. It includes all of our 5% in NFL. So we're 3-0 this year in NFL 5%. That's a 24-9 run last year and this year in NFL 5% plays. Yeah, it's a sick run. We're seeing our best bets really well. So use the promo code Andy100. All right, let's get to our fade of the day. This guy has been a thorn in my side, Steve. Every time we've bet on him to do well, he has absolutely gotten shredded. So enough's enough. We're gonna fade Justin Verlander, and we're gonna do it by taking the Mariners team total over 3.5. Low number. What do we like about this one?
Yeah, nice little number in this game, and Verlander has been a thorn in our side recently. The M's have went over 3.5 runs now. They've had hot bats. Went over in 4 of their last 5 games, and the Mariners have dominated the Astros this year. They're 8-2 against them, and in those 10 games, they've scored 4 or more runs 6 times. Verlander's been pretty shaky recently, like we just mentioned, and especially on the road. That's where he's really been shaky. And if you just look at the batter versus pitchers, some of the key hitters for the Mariners have really done well against Verlander. Julio Rodriguez 6 for 18 with a home run. Ty France 10 for 23 with a home run. J.P. Crawford 8 for 23 with a home run. So 3 key hitters, all with great stats against Verlander. Nice low total here. It's going to be a competitive game. Both teams fighting for playoff positioning in the AL West / wild card. Basically going to have 2 spots for 3 teams out there. So Yeah, give me the Mariners team total over 3.5. Nice low number. Gets great play for today in the MLB with a short slate.
Guys, if you're enjoying the gambling content, please hit the like button. It really, really helps us. And thank you for all the comments, man, in the section telling us. I saw somebody hit a huge first quarter underplay. I see we helped a few other people out with some of the information that we've given out. Tell us what you've been winning. We love hearing it, man. A lot. Honestly, sometimes we get a lot of negativity in the comments section, but man, we love hearing about the winning stories. Please post those. Really, I mean, it just gives us more juice and it gives us inspiration to get up and keep doing these videos and giving out as much actionable info. So it's good to know that it's building those bankrolls for everybody. So
Yeah,
all right,
I love the comment section. I've been
aren't they
having fun with
great?
it, going back and forth with some of the people, and it's great when you get to see somebody cash some tickets that, you know what I mean, that took your plays and actually went through with it, cashed some tickets, and had some fun with it. I've been having some fun on the message board.
Yeah, great. It's so much better than having someone come in and rip you for like a free play that was a loss, even though you won like four others.
Yeah,
So thank you so much. I love the
happens.
community that we're building. So, and by the way, we didn't lose as many people in the survivor pool as I thought we could have. The Cowboys obviously hurt some people. Jags did. We had a lot of people on the Dolphins and the Chiefs and the 49ers. So our survivor pool did not take
Nice.
as big of a hit as I thought it would have. Yeah. So let's do sleeper of the day. We talked about the Eagles passing. Let's not sleep on the Bucks passing game. Baker Mayfield, give me over 21 and a half pass completions. The Eagles they gave up 31 to Cousins and 35 to Mac Jones. Baker had 21 versus Minnesota and 26 versus Chicago. And here's the thing, Philly just has a way of getting ahead or putting you in a position where you have to throw the ball. That defensive line is really, really good, and their secondary is banged up. So I don't expect the Buccaneers to have a lot of success running the ball. I expect them to have success passing the ball. Mike Evans has looked fantastic. He had a 170-yard game last week. I like Cade Otton over 2.5 receptions from the tight end position. Godwin is still there. I think Baker could have a pretty decent night. And almost the best thing that would happen is if the Eagles got out to a lead. If they got out to, 13-0 lead or, 14-7 or, something like that where the Bucks throw. I think Baker flies over this total if this game script goes the way that I think it did. All we need is a close game or an Eagles lead, and I think Baker ends up going way over this. I mean, this Eagles team gave up over 30 pass completions to the last two quarterbacks. So 21.5 feels like a really, really low number to me on the sleeper play of the day for Baker Mayfield. Guys, we're going to do Bankroll Reset Day on Wednesday. We are going to air the episode with Justin talking about the prices right. So we'll just save Bankroll Reset Day. We'll be off tomorrow, and then we'll do it on Wednesday. But let's do the stat of the day, Steve. The Ravens, Browns, Bills, and Jets have not allowed a rushing touchdown this year. The Falcons, Titans, Saints, and Chiefs have allowed one each. Those poor Texans and Broncos have allowed 14 combined. If you're looking at props and anytime touchdown scores, you got to look at fading this Texans and Broncos. Steve, our sleeper, one of the sleepers last week was Tank Bigsby.
I was just going to bring
Rushing
that up.
touchdown. He gets there because he's playing the Texans. So if you're looking at anytime scores, this Ravens, Browns, Bills, and Jets team, you can't score on them. Falcons, Titans, Saints, and Chiefs, only one each. But these Texans and Broncos, man, load up on the running backs against. I would actually say the Texans more than the Broncos. The Broncos had that ridiculous day yesterday. I mean, it's interesting. We did talk about Denver traveling to Miami in the hot temperatures and getting gassed.
Yeah, more
Kind of
than
looked
gassed,
like it.
right? Jesus, 70 burger.
Yeah. So
That was a great
I
call
think
by
this
you.
Tex.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, no, no. What were you saying?
That was a great call by you on Bigsby, by the way. When I saw that he scored and you had put that out at the plus money yesterday, I was so close to using Laporta as the tight end, as the anytime touchdown sleeper, and I went Ertz
Oh,
instead last second. I was kicking myself for that
oh.
one, but great call by you on Bigsby, though.
Thanks. Tank Bigsby has maybe the worst hands I've ever seen from a running back. He had one target and no catches yesterday. The target hit him here, Steve. I mean, it was like you would have struggled to walk up and give it to him in a better position, and I would just bloop right through. So he had one target against the Colts. That pass hit him in the face and bounced to a Colts defender. His next target, the next game, went right through his hands, right here, and he had 2 carries yesterday for a touchdown. I got to tell you, Steve, he's their goal line back. He is their
Yeah,
goal line
it's
back.
it's not ATN. Yeah,
So it's when you get Bigsby or when you get a Jacksonville game where you think they're going to get in close, this Bigsby anytime touchdown might be a good one. So there's some actionable info when you're looking at anytime touchdown scores. You know, it's not just knowing what player you want to bet on; it's knowing what defense you want to fade. So there's some good ones there for you. So, all right, guys. So that is going to wrap it up for the Road to Millions portion of the show. We're going to get to the Price is Right interview here with Justin. It was a lot of fun. So don't forget, we got our 4 Monday Night Football best bets: Stafford rushing, Kyron rushing attempts, Jalen Hurts pass attempts, and Dallas Goedert over his receptions. And for our promo, use the promo code Andy100, $100 off the football season pass, and then get our Monday Night Football absolute best bet. Just need one shot, and our MLB play of the day. So that is going to do it for the Road to Millions. Stick around for the Price is Right interview. Steve, great work on the weekend. Good luck on all your bets here on Monday Night Football. Price is Right interview is next, coming at you. I've been excited to talk to this man for a long time. He found me on Twitter. It is the author of Solving the Price is Right, Justin Bergner. This is a book right up my alley, right up all of ours alley. So first off, Justin, thank you for being here. Thank you for writing this book. 2 games that every time the game comes up, I'm like, I know what they should do, and they never do it. And dang it, you covered both of them in the book, and I was so proud of you. The first and most obvious one to me is the game cover up. Cover up, they play it. I feel like it's on all the time, and why don't people figure out they should miss the first number on purpose? So just explain the game and the theory behind it. But every time I'm like, I know they're going to get the first number right, and they're going to think that they played the game right. And it really holds you back by not by getting that first number right. So describe the game and the theory behind missing the first number on purpose.
Sure. So the way the game works is you're playing for a car. You have 2 possible numbers for the first digit, 3 possible numbers for the second digit, 4 for the third, 5 for the fourth, and 6 for the fifth. And you choose one number for each digit. And then it's revealed how many numbers you have correct. You keep the correct numbers, assuming you have a correct number. And then you cover up the ones that are incorrect, and you choose another number from the column of possible choices for that number. And you keep playing assuming that you get one additional number correct in each round. So, if you get 3 numbers correct on the first round and you have to cover up 2 numbers, but then you get 0 numbers correct on the second round, the game's over after the second round and you don't win. But, if you cover up 1 number correctly in the first round, additional number. Sorry, if you get 1 number correct in the first round and then you cover up the other 4 and get 1 additional number right in the second round, then you play in the third round. So in theory, you can get like 1 number right in each round and get 5 tries at the price of the car, which is very important for those last 2 numbers where there are kind of 5 and 6 choices respectively. And it's hard to know whether the number is going to be sort of 1, 4, or 9.
Yeah. So you miss the first number. Hope you get at least one of the numbers right in the next few digits, and then you can come around and at least guarantee that you get that first number right, giving you basically a free shot at it, right?
Right. Yeah. So if you purposefully miss the first number, you only have to get one of the second, third, fourth, and fifth numbers correct to stay in the game. And then your second round, since there are only 2 choices for the first number, you're assured of getting the first number correct on the second try. And it's pretty clear what the first number is. It's like, is it a $20,000 car or a $30,000 car? And so if you get the second, if you purposely miss the first number on the first round and then you have to get it right in the second round, you're guaranteed of getting a third round to guess the numbers for the car. And you may end up actually getting, a fourth or fifth round where the odds of winning sort of increase demonstratively. So in my book, I sort of choose some sample probabilities for getting the different numbers correct. And then show, under this set of sample probabilities, if you purposefully make the first number, your odds of winning are about 36%. But if you purposefully miss the first number, your odds of winning can go up to around 47%.
That's such a huge advantage. What a huge
Yeah.
advantage.
Not one contestant did it. The only contestant
This
that
is funny.
missed the first number seemed to have done it accidentally. At least that was my take.
Oops.
Yeah.
Oh,
it's one of the most played games on the show too.
Yeah.
I mean, out of 50 goes.
Yeah.
Or I guess it was 40, but yeah.
I guess one of the problems is the audience is going to be screaming at you. If you're like, well, it's either a 2 or a 4, and I would be like, well, I'm going to take the 4, and no, and you're like, no, we're thinking on this one.
Well, I think people psychologically, they want to sort of stay in the game, and they're not wanting to sort of take chances. They'd rather just ensure they have 2 rounds in the game versus trying to extend the game to 3, 4, or 5 rounds, which is actually where your chances of winning the car really increase. It's not too different psychologically, I think, from in Contestants Row bidding,
Yeah.
contestants underbidding because they don't want to disqualify their bid from sort of counting. It's a similar sort of dynamic.
Yeah. The second one always baffles me how people screw this one up is hole in one. And as we know, it's hole in one or 2. You're supposed to try and guess the prices of 6 different items. And the more you get in a row from lowest to highest, the closer you get to the hole. And I've always thought about this too. Like, don't try and get all 6 of them right. That's almost impossible. Just try and get the guaranteed 3 or 4. You're going to get 2 putts. So all you got to do is get a little bit closer. Don't risk it at the beginning. Just forget about some of the items that you're not 100% confident in. So yeah, talk about hole in one, and it does mess with people. Like, oh, I got to get all 6 in a row. And you really shouldn't. You really shouldn't even try for it. It's probably not gonna work out, and you're gonna screw up something at the beginning. So talk about that game and the theory behind just not worrying about all 6 in a row.
Yeah, I think this game sort of provides the most life lessons, and we'll get to that in a minute. But interestingly, the win rate on this game, despite contestants, not trying to just get 3 or 4 in a row, was 69% in seasons 47 and 48. A lot of people failed in the price ranking exercise because you try and rank up to 6 prizes in sequential order, and depending upon how many you get correct, you putt from the first line farthest away to the 3rd or 4th line closer, or even the 6th line, which is the closest. So the win rate was 69% because a lot of contestants actually putted from the farthest line, but then actually got it in their first or second putt. So this game used to be really hard when it was hole in one, but now it's hole in 1 or 2. And it doesn't make for a difficult putting exercise. But what you should be doing, especially with 2 putts, is you should be trying to, rank 3 or 4 of the grocery prizes in ascending order that are, would fall in ascending order, and not really worry about the 5th or 6th, because then you're putting from, the 3rd or 4th line relatively close. You're probably going to get it in on that first or second putt. In effect, you're trying to figure out what you need to do that is sufficient for success in the game versus trying to overshoot. And a lot of people make this mistake in various aspects of life, and particularly in the business world. I mean, in the business world, the notion of sufficient for success is key. You find all sorts of startup companies, trying to push the technological envelope more than they need to, versus trying to figure out what is needed to sort of advance the puck and sort of, take a modest step change in technology that, requires less, money, less R&D, but ultimately satisfies the market. And so there's this great example I lay out in my book, in the cancer market for immuno-oncology drugs. This is Merck's Keytruda and Bristol Myers Opdivo. And if it hasn't been made into a business school case, it should be. It's one of the largest cancer markets there is. Unfortunately, these drugs are saving a lot of lives. But a decade ago, each of these two companies, Merck and Bristol Myers, were running trials for these two immuno-oncology drugs. That one that each of them had, and Bristol Myers designed its trials so as to sort of go for broke and try and serve patients that had a sort of genetic marker in their tumor that suggests it would be, well treated by this drug, but also other patients that didn't have that genetic marker. And so their drug ended up failing in terms of the key metric of prolonging overall survival, which is generally what people look for in these cancer drugs. And then Merck limited their trial to the subset of patients that had this tumor marker that suggested it would respond well to the drug. And not only did they increase overall survival, but the trial was stopped early because they reached that endpoint sooner in the trial than was expected to be needed to establish overall survival. So Bristol Myers drug was initially, in the early days, outselling Merck's drug 2-1. Now the market is a huge market. And, in 2020, Merck's Keytruda generated $14.5 billion of sales, more than double the $7 billion for Opdivo. Wow. We don't know to this day if Merck's drug is actually better, but the trial design that they set up was conservative. It was sufficient for success, and they're the winner. And Bristol Myers, drug is considered the second-rate drug, or a drug that's only used for sort of a select set of indications where it's differentiated itself a bit more.
Yeah, I love that you bring up real life examples of this. I love. There's a couple medical things I was going to ask you about that, but I love that theory that the Bristol Myers they overextended themselves, unnecessarily. Meanwhile, the other company just did it right, and that's like hole in one. Don't try and get all 6 of them so you're right up by the hole, because if you mess up right there at the beginning, now you got a real long putt. But if you just say, you know what, I know those 3 items for a fact are, bang, bang, bang in that order, and I'll just try and get a little bit closer because I know I got a couple shots. So that was we preach this with our gambling. Sometimes you just take the profits. You don't need to push. Like one of our favorite audience members said, "You're never going to go broke turning a profit." It's like, yeah, you don't need to hit the home run every single time. You got to know when to really push all in. Let's get right into it. My favorite part of the book was the Contestants Row theory. There's a couple other parts I love, but just the section of how to bid based on where you're at in Contestants Row. People mess this up all the time. I'm sure when you watched it, you were pulling your hair out and screaming, what are you doing? So let's go through Contestants Row, because it really is all about where you're bidding at. Are you bidding first or are you bidding last? So walk us through. I mean, obviously, if you're bidding last, you hold all the cards. You control everything there. But so start us off. What do people mess up about that very first bid? It happens all the time.
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, let me just sort of point out, the key sort of data observations, and then I'll get into what people mess up on and should do better. So as you point out, the last bidder, the 4th bidder, holds all the cards. The 4th bidder, won just about 41% of the bidding rounds. And if you think about, the 4th bidder should win more than a third of the rounds, because they can essentially clip one of the prior bidders by bidding $1 or a few dollars over that prior bid, effectively reducing the Contestants Row bidding from 4 credible bids to 3 credible bids. And, if they think the other contestants have gone over and, they have a fairly high confidence in that, they can bid $1 as well. So their chances of winning are above a third. And then that's not unexpected. And I don't think anyone's surprised to hear the last bidder, won 41% of the bidding rounds. But there are other things that also stood out. The thing that really surprised me was just the degree of egregious underbidding. I mean, that really jumped out. I mean, I think it's gotten worse over time because there were some academic papers a couple decades ago that discussed it, and it wasn't as notable then. And so, what we find is that the highest bid in Contestants Row prevailed 53% of the time. The last bidder, when he or she tabled the highest bid, won 64% of the time. But even the first, second, and third bidders, when their bid ended up, being the highest bid, won sort of in the low to mid 40% of the time. And so, it was so extreme that if the last bidder had bid $1 above the highest prior bid in every bidding round, just without fail, the last bidder would have prevailed 50% of the time instead of 41% of the time. And even more striking, if the last bidder had, instead of bidding $1 when he or she bid $1, that bidder had bid, $1 above the prior highest bid, the percentage win rate would have gone up from 26% on the $1 bids to 44% by virtue of just bidding $1 above the highest prior bid, when that contestant thought the price of the item up for bids was on the low side. So that was fascinating. And then the third thing was just a degree of anchoring. Low bids by the early bidders, particularly the first bidder, tended to attract low bids by subsequent bidders, and then high bids by the first bidder tended to attract high bids by subsequent bidders. So you tend to see more situations than you would expect with none of the contestants overbidding, and you tend to see more instances than you would expect with three of the contestants overbidding, because the first high bid would trigger subsequent high bids, and then the fourth bidder would often buck the trend.
Yeah, so if you're first, you shouldn't be worried about going over, because if you bid way too low, you're going to get clipped and you're out of the running anyways. You want to bid high and force people, almost kind of play that mental game, like, oh, they went high, I better come in low, and now you're the closest to the price, and if you go over, it's no big deal, because if you go too low, someone's going to up you by $1 or something, and you're effectively eliminated from the game anyway. So the strategy, if you're number one, is try and hit the price as close as possible. Like, don't play it safe, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, what the first bidder does, because he or she generally has no idea of what he or she should be doing, is to just think about how much the item up for bids is worth, and then, make some sort of cushion or discount to that to adjust for sort of, the risk of going over, versus thinking strategically. The second and the third bidders, I think, try and think strategically in the show, but they really don't have much of a better idea as to what they should be doing.
Yeah, when you watch it, I'm amazed that people go on the show, and then maybe it's the lights and the cameras, and there's Drew Carey and there's the models and everything. But every time I go in there, I watch. I'm like, have you watched this show? Have you studied any of this? I'm amazed at how many people seem like they're very unprepared when they get on the show. So Contestants Row, try and go high. If you ever make it on The Price is Right and you're number one, go high. Don't be cautious. What was the game that people struggled with the most? Once they make it up on stage, what was the one that just crushed everybody?
Yeah, I mean, it's good to sort of separate the games for the show in terms of the car and the non-car games. So in the car game category, the games that really gave the contestants a lot of trouble were That's Too Much, Pathfinder, and Stack the Deck. That's Too Much and Stack the Deck are just hard games. I mean, and That's Too Much, you're trying to guess from sort of 10 sequential car prices, which is the first number in ascending order to be just over the price of the car. And there could really be 5 or 6 potential choices. I think the third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, and eighth numbers were possible correct answers. I don't think the lowest two or the highest two numbers were ever correct answers. And the eighth number was rarely a correct answer, but effectively you're guessing from like 5 numbers. And yeah, you have some ideas to what the car is worth, but it's just a hard setup. And then stack the deck, where you're basically selecting from a variety of numbers for what the price of the car is. And if you sort of do some pricing exercises correctly, you can get 1, 2, or 3 numbers. Unless you get 3 numbers correct, like you're trying to price the car with very low probabilities of winning. In fact, in seasons, the overall win rate in Stack the Deck was about 17%. In seasons 47 and 48, that's too much. And Pathfinder worked 22%, 21% respectively. And Stack the Deck, it was played 18 times, and all 3 times it was won, the contestant was able to get 3 free digits for the car, and they won each of those 3 times. They were 0 for 5 and 0 for 10 respectively when they only got 2 free digits or 1 free digit. So just a very hard setup sort of mathematically.
This really surprised me. I think just watching, I think Lucky 7 is the most unfair. I was surprised that more people won Lucky 7 than That's Too Much. Like okay, outside of the first 2 numbers, it's a complete guess, and you only have $7 between the digits. And I was stunned that more people won Lucky 7 than That's Too Much, because you're right, That's Too Much, it's never going to be the first couple. It's never going to be the last one. So I just figured, you got like a 1 in 5 chance of That's Too Much. I don't know. Lucky 7. Is there any strategy with Lucky 7, or are you outside once you get to the last 3 numbers, you're just rolling the dice, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's some strategy for Lucky 7. I mean, there's conditional strategies. So depending on how many dollars you lose on the second and third digits of the card, because you're given the first digit and asked to guess the second, third, fourth, and fifth digits, and you lose $1 for every unit you're off each of those digits. You can only lose $6 of the $7 so that you still have one to buy the card. I think what you need to do is if you're close on the second and third digits, then you can play it safer on the fourth and fifth digits. You can get something sort of closer to 5 or 6, or actually I should say 6 for the fourth, 6 or 7 for the fourth digit, because they tend to be higher digits. And then for the fifth digit, hopefully you have $3 or $4 left, and you can just guess 5. And sorry, you have $3 or $4 left to lose.
Yeah.
You can guess 5, and then most of the time you'll win. But if you don't have many dollars left, then when you come to that last digit, assuming you're still in the game, you're not best served by guessing 5, because the last digit's rarely 5. In fact, the last digit was most frequently 9. And so if you have very few, if you can only lose $0 or $1 on the last number, you're better off just guessing $9 or $8 if you can lose 1. Hope that it's 7 or 9 or 8.
And then the anchoring high, this is where the coming or going, double prices, and the side by side. This is basically where you got 2 or 3 options to pick the price. And you're talking about the concept of assuming a luxury item is expensive, the mentality of we see something that we think should be expensive and we always end up guessing high. I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, so it's interesting because in Contestants Row bidding, people make the mistake of guessing low. And in coming or going, double prices, and side by side, you're basically, simple pricing games, you're basically guessing between one of 2 prices for, the prize, and you're shown both prices. Well, when you're shown both prices, your mental sort of bias actually shifts from underbidding, because you don't know what the price might be, to overbidding, because you see 2 possible prices and you think, well, the Price is Right is trying to give away nice prizes. They're not going to be cheap. And the Price is Right is not cheap, but these games generally didn't, err towards having the higher price choice be the correct pick. But the, contestants to varying degrees were biased towards picking the higher price option in those 3 games. So it kind of relates to luxury goods in a sense, and that luxury goods sort of need a high price to attract the buyers because otherwise they're not considered luxury goods. So this sort of plays out in a similar manner where the contestant, thinks the show isn't cheap, and so they have a mental bias to go with the higher price item unless they have some conviction that the other lower price is to be correct.
All right, so we're in. Let's say we're on the price. We're in Contestants Row. We know if we're 1, we got to bid high. Okay, that works. We win. Let's say we play cover up. We play it properly by missing the first number on purpose. We win the car. We go to the big wheel. I actually think people do the big wheel right. I very rarely do I see people do really dumb things on the big wheel. And then, so let's talk about the big wheel, and then we'll talk the Showcase Showdown. So the big wheel, I don't know. Did you discover that people mess this one up? Because every time I watch, I genuinely agree with whether they decide to spin again or not.
Yeah, no, I mean, the mistakes were infrequent and on the margin. So this is a pure sort of probabilistic game theory, backward induction exercise. The second spinner can, presuming he or she has surpassed, the first spinner can mathematically calculate what value he or she should stop at versus spinning again to maximize the chances of winning. But yeah, the mistakes were small. I think human beings have a very good intuitive sense of probabilities. It's served us well over the course of human history, knowing sort of how to make sort of calculated bets, at least in simple situations. And yeah, that was the Showcase Showdown.
I only had one sneaky thing that I would be on the fence whether I would try it. Is if I was spinning, I would purposely not go all the way around the first time to try and get my bearings on how hard to spin the wheel and to see if I could gauge maybe where it lands on the. If I don't make it all the way around, I get another spin and maybe I can get closer to the dollar, but I don't know if I would have the guts to try and pull that off if I was up.
Yeah, I people have asked me about that, and I haven't really figured out how hard it is to get the wheel just one iteration around if you were to sort of get it to the spot to set up your. You fail to go all the way around, so you get another spin. But I don't know how hard it is if you set yourself up at the right spot to.
Yeah.
Get on the
all right, so we make it. We do awesome on the big wheel. We make it to the Showcase Showdown, and now there's lots of things going on. So not only is the Showcase Showdown, you got to try and pick the prices. At the Showcase Showdown, it always starts with kind of a know-nothing prize, and then it kind of goes up, and then you have the big one. But not only do you have to price out what these things cost, but you got to decide which one to bid on. And I don't know if what's the game theory behind that about if you're deciding whether to pass or bid. If you don't like the prizes, but you think you know what the prices are, should you bid just to try and win, or do you roll the dice so you get a better showcase? How does a Showcase Showdown work? What's the theory behind that?
Yeah, I didn't get into the game theory of it too much. I mean, you make some great points, which is if you feel like you have a good grasp as to what the first showcase is, even if you're not crazy about it, it might behoove you to bid on it. So here's where things are interesting. In theory, you should be better off going second.
Yeah.
Because you can react to the first bid. If you think the first bid is a bad bid, maybe it went over by a lot or it was way too low, you can bid much more conservatively on the second showcase. And if you think the first showcase bid is good, you can bid more aggressively or tight versus what you think the price is on the second showcase. But what actually happened was the exact opposite, which is the bidder on the second showcase got anxiety after witnessing the bid on the first showcase, whether or not it was a good bid, and bid too tight. And so the first showcase ended up winning much higher percentage of the time than the second showcase, just because the bidder on the second showcase went over way too much. So I think it was like 52% showcases were won by the bidder on the first showcase, 42% by the bidder on the second showcase, and then 6% were double overbids, and nobody won. And that was like totally counterintuitive. In fact, I rewrote that section of the book a couple times because I was so confused by what I saw. And this was just pure sort of behavioral, statistical observations tied to anxiety associated with bidding second. And now to sort of turn our attention to sports, and sort of as we, wind down, this has tremendous, this can be, analogized to penalty kick shootouts, where the team that goes second on penalty kick shootouts only wins the penalty kick shootout like 40% of the time. There was this big study by this professor in the London School of Economics that looked at, all these situations of decisive penalty kick shootouts, and, found that the team going first, won around 60% of the time, just because the team that went second would get anxiety, and the players would either try and go for too good of a shot, or they would just sort of tighten up and, hit over the crossbar or something.
Wow. You're right. That is really, so you want to be first. And you want to kind of put the pressure on them.
Butterflies if you go first. You just kind of go up and do what you need to do.
Nice. And it's you also mentioned something about it's like NFL survivor pools and picking the winner of the NCAA tournament, where if you pick the same one as everyone else, you're not going to get anywhere. So sometimes it's you really kind of using the process of elimination. Can we eliminate some teams and kind of maybe find an underdog? Because the more people we can eliminate, the better chance that we have at winning. I thought that was a good sports analogy.
Yeah, so in the NCAA tournament, obviously in order to win the pool, you generally have to pick, the winner of the tournament. But if you're picking the same winner of the tournament that everybody else is, you're not really gaining anything on anybody else. And so you don't want to pick someone that has zero chance of winning. But if you could pick someone that has a decent chance of winning that others aren't going to pick, you're in good standing. Similarly, in survivor football, you have the most to gain if a quarter of the pool picks, Washington like they did in week 1, and Washington loses. Now, they didn't lose. They obviously survived. But had they lost, you would have seen a huge percentage of the pool eliminated. I think it was the second most picked game in week 1 for survivor pools after the Ravens.
Yeah. So I have to ask, do you dabble in the sports gambling world?
I do not dabble in sports gambling. I think because I'm in the world of equities and stock investing, I get
not that different.
Sufficient
it's
sort of
really
exposure to the art of gambling and trying to make educated guesses in, probabilistic situations. I get that in sort of my day job. And I also I've never thought I was good enough to sort of overcompensate for the, cost associated with gambling for sports.
Well, that is Justin Bergner, Solving the Price is Right. It's a great book. I think the best thing that you did in here was I love the little sections of how it equates to real life. I thought that was just the perfect touch to the book, where you explain the games and say, now this is how you can apply it to your real life. There was a couple things I really took away that I am absolutely going to apply. The process of elimination was number 1. I think that could be really helpful with trying to figure out which games and which bets we want to bet on, just by really using the process of elimination and saying, now which one do we know for a fact is not this? Okay, we can take it out of there. So I enjoyed it immensely. I've gone back and read a couple sections a couple times. What was your favorite part about the book? Or I guess, was anything really surprising? What was your favorite? Anything big surprises that came away?
Yeah, I don't know if it was my favorite, but the big surprise was the showcase, and this kind of anxiety of going second, or I call it the detriment of going second. It was so surprising that I had to rewrite the chapter 2 or 3 times before I actually got it correct. I would say my favorite part of the book was the Contestants Row bidding, just because it was just so deep and complex. And
that was my favorite. That was the one I read the most.
Know what I was going to uncover.
Yeah, that was the one I went back and read it over and over and over again. I was like, That is amazing. Yeah, if you're number one, you got to bid high and put the pressure on all these other three bozos trying to trying to bid. So I
But
thought it was
I got some help there from one of my game theory professors in college. So
amazing.
that was helpful just to sort of, I mean, not to solve it for me, but just to help me sort of synthesize my thoughts and communicate them, because it's an extraordinarily complex topic that, you know, a couple of academic articles have been written about.
Well, it's a fun read. There's a lot of numbers. There's a lot of great theories in here. There's a lot of stuff that surprised me. And if you're a fan of The Price is Right, like we are, it's a must have. And I will tell you this, Justin. I run some free contests on our show, and I have like a prize pack. And I've decided I'm going to buy 10 of these, and these are going to come in the prize pack. So you're getting 10,
Oh, wow.
10
Thank you
sales
so
right.
much, Andy. That's so nice of
Absolutely.
you.
Everyone that watches The Price is Right should read this. It's absolutely fantastic. So, well, Justin, thank you so much for coming on. You got to come on again. Maybe we can rehash this a little bit later. I know you're a big tennis fan. We do a lot of talk on tennis. So, yeah, thank you so much. That was a great read. I hope everyone gets the book. I'll be purchasing some, and thank you so much for coming on, Justin.
Thanks so much, Andy.